Jenny's day started like any other, until the HOA president's scathing complaint letter landed in her mailbox, and the city called it defamation. Now, she's facing a legal battle that could destroy her family, her home, and everything she's worked for. The war has begun, and only one side can emerge victorious. Jenny stared at the letter in disbelief, the crisp paper shaking in her hands. The HOA president's words leaped off the page, accusing her of unsightly landscaping and disturbing the neighborhood's ambience. Worst of all, the letter claimed she had refused to pay her dues, a blatant lie. Heart racing, Jenny marched across the street to the president's immaculate house. The door swung open to reveal Diane, her perfectly coiffed hair and condescending glare instantly infuriating Jenny. "What is the meaning of this?" Jenny demanded, thrusting the letter forward. Diane's lips curled into a smug smile. "I think the meaning is quite clear. Your unkempt yard is an eyesore, and you're delinquent on your fees. The HOA has no choice but to take action. This is outrageous." Jenny's voice rose. "I've paid every cent I owe, and my yard looks better than half the houses on this street. You're just targeting me because I won't join your little clique." Diane's eyes narrowed. "Now, Jenny, let's not make this personal. As president, it's my duty to maintain property values and community standards. If you have a problem with that, you're welcome to take it up with the board." Jenny's jaw tightened. "Oh, I plan to. This isn't over." Turning on her heel, she stormed back home, her mind racing. This couldn't be happening. Not after all the work she put into her home. Not after everything she and her family had sacrificed. She had to fight back, no matter the cost. That evening, Jenny pored over the HOA's bylaws, searching for any loopholes or inconsistencies. Her husband, Mark, watched helplessly as she grew more and more agitated. "Honey, are you sure this is the best use of your time?" he asked gently. "Maybe we should just comply with their demands and avoid the hassle." "Comply?" Jenny scoffed. "Mark, you know how much this house means to me. I'm not going to let some power-hungry busybody dictate how I live in my own home." Mark sighed. I know, but this could get ugly. Are you prepared to go to war with the entire HOA?" Jenny's eyes narrowed. "If that's what it takes, then yes. I'm not backing down." The next morning, Jenny marched into the HOA's monthly meeting, her chin held high. The other board members eyed her warily as she took a seat, waiting for the inevitable confrontation. "All right, let's get started," Diane began, her gaze settling on Jenny. "First item on the agenda is the complaint about the Johnson residence. Jenny, I see you're here. Would you like to address the board?" Jenny stood, her voice steady. "Yes, I would. I'm here to dispute the claims in your letter. My yard is well maintained, and I'm up to date on my dues. This is nothing more than a personal vendetta against me." Diane tusked, shaking her head. "Now, Jenny, let's not make this personal. The HOA has standards to uphold, and your property is simply not meeting them. I'm afraid we have no choice but to fine you and demand you bring your yard into compliance." Jenny's eyes narrowed. "Fine me? On what grounds? I've done nothing wrong, and I refuse to be bullied by this board." The other board members murmured in agreement, and Diane's face flushed with annoyance. "The grounds are clear. Your yard is an eyesore, and you're delinquent on your fees. Unless you correct these issues immediately, we'll have no choice but to take further action." "Further action?" Jenny scoffed. "Like what exactly? Are you going to send in a landscaping crew to destroy my hard work? Or maybe you'll call the police and have me arrested for refusing to pay imaginary fines." Diane's eyes narrowed. "Don't be ridiculous, Jenny. We're simply trying to maintain the community standards that we all agreed to when we moved in. If you continue to defy us, we'll have no choice but to take this to the next level." Jenny leaned forward, her voice low. "Go ahead and try. I'm not backing down, and I won't be bullied. If you want a war, then that's exactly what you're going to get. The board members shifted uncomfortably, and Diane's jaw tightened. The battle lines had been drawn, and neither side was willing to back down. Over the next few weeks, the tension in the neighborhood escalated. Diane and the HOA board ramped up their efforts to force Jenny into compliance, bombarding her with letters, fines, and even threats of legal action. Jenny, meanwhile, refused to back down. She attended every HOA meeting, challenging the board's decisions and demanding to see the community's financial records. When the board refused to cooperate, she began reaching out to local news outlets, determined to expose what she saw as a pattern of abuse and mismanagement. The standoff came to a head at the next HOA meeting as Jenny stormed in, a thick stack of papers in her hands. "All right, board members, let's talk about these financial records," she announced, slamming the papers down on the table. "I've been doing some digging, and it seems your so-called community improvements are nothing more than a slush fund for your own personal projects." Diane's face flushed with anger. "Now, Jenny, let's not make baseless accusations. The HOA's finances are entirely transparent, and every penny is accounted for." "Transparent?" Jenny scoffed. "Then why can't I see the actual invoices and receipts? Why are there no detailed breakdowns of where the money is going?" The other board members shifted uncomfortably, avoiding Jenny's gaze. "The HOA's finances are none of your business," Diane snapped. "You're just stirring up trouble because you refuse to comply with our community standards." "Community standards?" Jenny's voice rose. "This isn't about standards, Diane. This is about your own personal agenda, and you're using the HOA to push it through. Well, I'm not going to stand for it any longer." Diane's eyes narrowed. "Is that a threat, Jenny?" "It's a promise," Jenny replied, her voice unwavering. "I'm going to expose every last one of your dirty little secrets, and I won't stop until this community is free from your tyranny." The room erupted into a cacophony of voices as the other board members tried to interject and restore order. But Jenny stood her ground, her eyes blazing with determination. The battle lines had been drawn, and there was no turning back. In the days following the explosive HOA meeting, tension in the neighborhood reached a fever pitch. Diane and the board members launched a full-scale campaign to discredit Jenny, plastering the community with flyers and emails accusing her of being a troublemaker and a disruptive force. Jenny, undeterred, continued her crusade to uncover the HOA's financial misdeeds. She spent long hours poring over financial records, meticulously cross-checking invoices and receipts. And when she uncovered evidence of questionable spending and potential embezzlement, she wasted no time in taking her findings to the local media. The resulting news coverage was explosive, with the local news station airing a skate-in report that painted the HOA board in a damning light. Residents were outraged, flooding the HOA's office with angry calls and emails demanding accountability. Diane, her face flushed with fury, called an emergency meeting of the board, her gaze settling on Jenny with undisguised contempt. "This has gone far enough," she spat. "Jenny, you've caused enough trouble in this community, and it's time for it to stop. If you don't withdraw your allegations and issue a public apology, we'll have no choice but to take legal action." Jenny's eyes narrowed. "Legal action? Bring it on, Diane. I have the evidence to back up every single one of my claims, and I'm not going to back down just because you and your cronies are trying to bully me." Diane's nostrils flared. "Then you leave us no choice. We're filing a defamation lawsuit against you, and we'll make sure you and your family are ruined." Jenny felt a chill run down her spine, but she refused to show her fear. "Go ahead, Diane. But I promise you, this is far from over. I'm going to take you and this entire corrupt HOA down, no matter what it takes." The board members exchanged uneasy glances, but Diane's expression remained steely. The war had escalated, and the stakes had never been higher. True to her word, Diane and the HOA board wasted no time in filing a defamation lawsuit against Jenny. The legal battle quickly became a heated and expensive affair, with both sides hiring high-powered attorneys and marshaling every resource at their disposal. Jenny, determined to fight back, poured her life savings into the case, her resolve only strengthening with each new obstacle. She knew that if she lost, the financial and personal consequences could be devastating, not just for her, but for her entire family. As the legal proceedings dragged on, the tension in the neighborhood reached a fever pitch. Neighbors who had once been friends found themselves divided, forced to choose sides in the bitter dispute. The HOA board members used every tactic at their disposal to turn the community against Jenny, spreading rumors and lies about her motives and character. But Jenny refused to be silenced. She continued her relentless campaign to expose the HOA's corruption, leveraging her newfound media attention to rally support from local residents. Slowly but surely, the tide began to turn, as more and more people recognized the board's abuses and rallied behind Jenny's cause. The turning point came when Jenny uncovered evidence that Diane and several other board members had been using HOA funds to finance personal luxury vacations and home renovations. Armed with this damning information, Jenny called a special community meeting, determined to finally bring the truth to light. As Diane and the other board members sat trembling with thinly veiled panic, Jenny laid out the evidence, her voice rising with righteous indignation. "This is not about maintaining community standards," she declared. "This is about a small group of individuals using their positions of power to line their own pockets at the expense of the rest of us." The room erupted in outrage, with residents demanding the immediate resignation of the corrupt board members. Diane, her face pale with fear, tried to defend herself, but her words fell on deaf ears. In the end, she and several others were forced to step down, their reputations in tatters. As the meeting drew to a close, Jenny felt a sense of triumph wash over her. The battle had been long and hard fought, but in the end, justice had prevailed. With the corrupt HOA board members ousted, the community was left to pick up the pieces and rebuild. Jenny, having emerged victorious from the legal battle, found herself at the center of a new challenge, leading the effort to reform the HOA and restore trust within the neighborhood. It was no easy task. The damage done by Diane and her cohorts had been extensive, both financially and emotionally. Many residents were disillusioned and distrustful, unsure of whether they could ever truly rely on the HOA to serve their best interests. But Jenny, undaunted, set out to win them over. She assembled a new board of directors, carefully vetting each member to ensure they were committed to transparency, accountability, and the betterment of the community. She also launched a series of town hall meetings, inviting residents to voice their concerns and share their ideas for the future of the HOA. The response was overwhelming. Neighbors who had once been at each other's throats now came together, united in their desire to heal the wounds of the past and build a stronger, more cohesive community. Jenny listened intently, taking meticulous notes and working tirelessly to address every issue that was raised. As the weeks turned into months, the transformation of the HOA was nothing short of remarkable. Strict financial controls were put in place, with detailed budgets and expenditures publicly available for all to see. Community events and initiatives were organized, fostering a sense of connection and pride among the residents. And perhaps most importantly, Jenny worked to repair the relationships that had been torn apart by the bitter feud. She reached out to those who had once been her adversaries, extending olive branches and seeking to heal the wounds of the past. It was a slow and often difficult process, but slowly the neighborhood began to come together again. Neighbors who had once been at each other's throats now found themselves exchanging friendly waves and sharing neighborhood potlucks. The once divided community was finally on the mend. As Jenny looked out over the revitalized neighborhood, she couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. The battle had been hard fought, but in the end, the community had emerged stronger and more united than ever before. Just when it seemed that the dust had finally settled, a new challenge emerged, one that threatened to undo all the progress that had been made. It started with a series of anonymous letters distributed throughout the neighborhood, accusing Jenny and the new HOA board of engaging in their own corrupt practices. The letters were vague and unsubstantiated, but they were enough to sow seeds of doubt and mistrust among the residents. As the rumors began to spread, Jenny found herself once again at the center of a growing storm. Neighbors who had once been her staunchest supporters now eyed her with suspicion, questioning her motives and her leadership. Diane, the disgraced former HOA president, was quick to capitalize on the situation. She began appearing at community events, feeding the rumors and casting aspersions on Jenny's character. It was a brazen attempt to reclaim her position of power, and it was working, at least for a time. Jenny knew that she had to act quickly to counter the onslaught of misinformation. She called an emergency meeting of the HOA board, determined to get to the bottom of the anonymous letters and put an end to the growing unrest. As the meeting unfolded, it became clear that the letters were the work of a small but vocal group of residents, many of whom had been close allies of Diane and the old board. They had been systematically undermining the new HOA's efforts, seizing on any perceived misstep or controversy to fuel their campaign of disinformation. Jenny, her voice calm and steady, addressed the gathered residents. "This is not about us," she said. "This is about a small group of individuals who are determined to undermine the progress we've made and return us to the dark days of the past. But I promise you, we will not be intimidated. We will not be silenced." The room erupted in applause, and Jenny knew that she had the support of the vast majority of the community. With renewed determination, she and the HOA board set out to expose the truth behind the anonymous letters and restore trust within the neighborhood. It was a battle that would test the limits of their resolve, but Jenny was more determined than ever to protect the progress they had made and ensure that the community's future remained bright. In the weeks that followed, Jenny and the HOA board launched a relentless investigation into the source of the anonymous letters. They combed through financial records, interviewed witnesses, and even hired a private investigator to dig deeper into the matter. As the evidence began to mount, a disturbing picture emerged. The letters were the work of a small cabal of residents, led by none other than Diane herself. The former HOA president, still bitter and resentful over her downfall, had been orchestrating a campaign of misinformation and intimidation, enlisting the help of a handful of loyal supporters to spread her lies and sow discord within the community. When confronted with the evidence, Diane and her co-conspirators had little choice but to admit their guilt. The revelation sent shockwaves through the neighborhood, with many residents feeling betrayed and outraged by the extent of the deception. Jenny, unwavering in her commitment to justice, wasted no time in taking action. She convened an emergency meeting of the HOA board, where she presented the damning evidence and called for the immediate expulsion of Diane and her co-conspirators from the community. The vote was unanimous, and Diane and her supporters were swiftly removed from the neighborhood, their reputations and influence in tatters. As they departed, their faces twisted with rage and humiliation, Jenny couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. In the aftermath, the community rallied together to heal the wounds of the past and move forward with renewed determination. The HOA, under Jenny's steadfast leadership, implemented even stronger safeguards and transparency measures to prevent any future abuses of power. And as for Jenny herself, she emerged from the ordeal with a deeper appreciation for the power of community and a renewed commitment to using her voice and her actions to fight for what she believed was right. She knew that the battle had been won, but the war for a better, more just community was far from over. As she looked out over the revitalized neighborhood, Jenny couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. The road had been long and difficult, but in the end, justice had prevailed. And she knew that as long as she remained vigilant, the community would continue to thrive and grow, stronger and more united than ever before.